So what are the challenges facing sports leagues when it comes to monetising content?
So I think the main challenge really for the sports leagues is making sure they've got the rights to the content. Historically they've been selling the rights to third parties, but now we're increasingly seeing sports leagues wanting to bring those rights back in-house and doing the content distribution themselves. Obviously, once they've got hold of those rights, once they've kept hold of those rights, it's making sure there's very, very high quality content available. Consumers these days, thanks to the wide variety of other streaming services outside of the sports space, have very, very high expectations when it comes to quality. And when it comes to the streaming bit rate that people are using as well. So they expect high quality at a low bit rate so they can access it on a wide variety of devices. We're also seeing a really, really high demand for not necessarily low latency, but broadcast equivalent latency, so that if people who are watching it on one service, whereas maybe their neighbours are watching it on a different service, you want to make sure that your neighbour isn't cheering for the goal ahead of you and spoiling the event for you.
And what are the different monetisation options available?
So there's, a really wide variety here. You've got the traditional ones, you've got your transactional VOD, you've got your subscription VOD, the ones that have been around for a very, very long time in maybe more the pay TV operator space. We're increasingly seeing AVOD being incredibly popular with our customers. But that doesn't necessarily give the consumer the flexibility that they really want and expect. So we're now looking at including things like microtransactions, for example, the ability to buy a very, very small proportion of the game. So it could be that if we look at something like basketball or especially US sports, which it's very well suited for, you've got a game which is really, really popular, it's going into a draw in the last 30 seconds, it's blowing up on Twitter. As a consumer, you want to be able to buy into that and watch it without necessarily buying the whole game. So the ability to do these microtransactions, buy small proportions of the game or buy small highlights of the game, is increasingly important to consumers, and therefore it's very, very important to our customers at the moment.
And fan engagement and personalisation of content is a huge focus for many as well. What are the key considerations for leagues, federations and broadcasters here?
It actually starts off going back to the monetization piece. If you think about advertising, if you're going to have advertising as part of your service, you need to make sure it's relevant to your consumers. Now, actually, if you're a sports league, you know your consumer really well. For a starting point, you know who they support. You might also know, where they are. If you're looking, especially doing things like advertising around sort of in the stadium areas, you know when someone's attending a match, you know when someone isn't. So you can start to look at maybe even potentially hyper-targeted advertising based on this personalisation as people are going towards the stadium. If they're maybe watching a preview of the game or highlights of previous matches on their phones or their tablets as they're on the way there, you can then be targeting, maybe even a pizza shop, really close to the stadium with hyper-targeted advertising, which is super interesting for people because it makes it relevant, it makes them want to watch it. Then from more of a sports content perspective, again, it's making sure that you're really targeting the content at the consumer, understanding the type of content they want to watch. Some people will really be fixated on the live content. Some people will just want to watch the highlight reels. There's some really, really interesting technologies now that are coming in which are AI-based from a number of our partners that we're working with and bringing into our ecosystem that allow the creation of automated highlight reels based on what people like. So if you can learn this, if you can capture all this data, you can then start to analyze it and present very, very intelligent personalization options for the end consumer, because they don't necessarily have a long time. If they've only got a few minutes to catch up, you really want to make sure that what they're watching is targeted specifically towards them.
And everyone is at different stages of the journey to the cloud. How can MediaKind help here?
So I've been talking about moving to the cloud with our customers, good gracious, for 10 plus years now. And actually what's very interesting is some of the people who 10 years ago, in one case, literally laughed me out of his office, is now one of the biggest proponents of the shift to the cloud. But there does have to be a mind shift change. Now, for sports leagues in particular, the cloud is a really, really good use case for them because it's not necessarily running 24/7, 365. It's often running event-based, and often it needs to scale very, very quickly. So, by operating in the cloud, you can get real cost savings compared to doing things on-prem. Having said that, for some of our customers, they still want to do things on-prem. So we've architected in such a way that we can run on-prem or we can run in the cloud. And we also make sure we work with all the major cloud vendors, AWS, Azure, GCP, Oracle, Alibaba, to make sure that whichever cloud ecosystem our customer wants to use, they can do. We're also able to run across multiple clouds. So this is very, very important for a number of our customers. If you're thinking about very, very high value sports content, many of them don't want to be reliant on just one cloud. They want to run across multiple clouds as well. And our software is architected in such a way that we can do that to give the best possible resiliency and give people the most confidence possible that there will not be an outage during their game, during their match, or during their service.
That's great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.